Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Zanzal, coach, ordained minister, grandma, mama of four, and a queer woman married to my lovely, gorgeous wife after I came out later in life. This is Coming Out and Beyond LGBTQIA plus stories, a podcast for everyone exploring identity, queerness, and what it means to live more truthfully, no matter our age or stage. We share stories of coming out, starting over, resiliency, how to navigate relationships, grief, joy, and building lives that actually fit us as human beings. No labels required, just curiosity, courage, and a little faith in this journey. Welcome. Let's dive in.
You love each other, but lately it feels like you're speaking different emotional languages. Strengthening Love is a powerful relationship course created just for lesbian couples. You'll learn how to break painful patterns, communicate with compassion, and feel truly seen again together. Created by LGBTQ+ experts, it's affirming, practical, and designed for real-life connection. It's a one-time payment, lifetime access, and real change. Visit healthylesbianrelationships.com to enroll today, because your love deserves more than just getting by. It deserves to grow.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to part 2 of our episode on grief, on coming out and beyond. This is Anne-Marie Zanzal.
And I'm Barb Rowlandson. Welcome.
Welcome. We are so glad you're here. So the last time Barb and I got together, we started discussing grief. A very quick recap of what we discussed last time. And so if you have not listened to the last podcast, we really encourage you to go do that before you listen to this podcast. So we talked about the fifth grief as it is related to the coming out journey using the framework of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. The last episode, we discussed 3 things.
Right. We discussed the first 3 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, and bargaining, although I think I've gotten them out of order of how we discussed them.
We want you to be clear that that is not an order.
Yes.
The stages of grief are not linear. They are a loop. Please go back and listen to last week's episode, and this will be all much clearer to you.
Yes. Yes. So we discussed them, and we also discussed feelings within each stage and managing feelings and putting them into perspective.
So today we are going to start with everyone's favorite topic, depression. We would love for you. Well, you guys will already be listening to this by the time, but we're like, okay, how are we going to title this episode? Because if we title it depression, no one's going to listen.
Yeah, that's not really an easy sell, this topic. However, it is something that so many of members of our community experience during the coming out process, right? That's just seems to go hand in hand, or at least feelings of sadness that are associated with grief and loss.
Depression can feel like fatigue, a lot of tears, loneliness in a full house. What we mean is feeling lonely even though you're surrounded by, your family, your husband, your children, friends, mom and dad, all that. And there's a lot of grief around the version of you who tried so hard to fit.
For sure. Can you talk about your experience, like related to that feeling?
Yeah. So the sadness around everything that changed lasted a really long time. It wasn't something that just happened the first year or 2, because when we are coming out later in life, we go through so much change. And with that change is often a lot of loss. And so having loss can make us sad. And it's
Sure.
okay to be sad.
Sure.
We are allowed to be sad. And so it took me a long time, and I've said this in last episode, I was a professional grief counselor before I did this work. And it took me 6 months into my own process to realize I was grieving. It was like an aha moment that I'll never forget, because I was like,
Right.
I was a mess. I was crying. For me, when I say I'm a mess, it means I was emotionally all over the place, all over. especially with tears and unable to move and or unable to make a step forward. And I think that happens to a lot of us during this. I think I'm going to title it the fetal position phase, where
Mhm,
you need to make changes, but
mhm.
you're still such a baby gay
Yes.
that you just don't have the
Yep. Yeah, and not a lot of information. There's a lot of unknowns going forward.
right. Because if you're listening to this, you may think you're the only person that's ever done this. And both Barb and I thought we were the only women that came out later in life. And there's a huge community out here. You are not the only person. And what Barb and I have done over the last 7 years, me 7, Barb 4, is to create a pathway for you to get through this. Because believe it or not, there is a shared commonality of this experience. And Barb and I know it backwards and forwards.
And that was like, I think it was the most astonishing part for me was
Hmm.
to learn how many of us go through this. And it continues to be, I think, the most astonishing part for most of our clients to realize there's all kinds of other women who go
Hmm.
through this. And of course, we know with like depression, one of the coping strategies, unhealthy coping strategies that can come with depression is isolation, right?
Correct.
So if we isolate ourselves, we're uncertain about the future, how we're going to connect with queer community or go forward as a queer person, and what does that even look like, coupled with the loss of the future you thought you were going to have. We always planned we were going to retire, we were going to do these things with the kids, we
Or we're
were
gonna do things with our husband,
right, Christmases or
or
other
just
special events.
retire to this place when we're in our 60s, and then all of a sudden that is just
Gone.
gone.
Yeah.
And I do think that with depression, that our inner child gets activated in this journey,
Yeah.
as it feels a lot like the big T trauma or the little T trauma that we
Mm,
experienced as children.
mhm.
So, our inner child is somebody that believes that they're still a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have all this stuff coming at us that we didn't expect. And our little girl's coping skills is just to fold in and
Mhm.
to isolate. Because when she was a child, that was the only option, right?
Right, that's what trauma is, right? When we're presented with something, a dire situation, a difficult situation that we don't have the resources for coping with, we don't have the power in that moment. And so what do children do?
Mhm.
Like, they're powerless, they retreat, go
Mhm.
and
They go
that
read books, they go outside to play.
yep, like, and that gets activated within us later on
Mhm.
in life.
Right.
Right? It's an automatic thing. It's not even something we decide to do, it's just something that happens in the moment.
Correct. And I now know, looking back at that time in my life, the first year, I was experiencing this incredible joy of discovering my queer identity,
Mhm,
falling in love, like really in love for the first time in my life, having amazing sex. So I was at I was doing my teenager phase.
mhm,
And this whole life that I had carefully built, because my ex-husband and I are both children of big T trauma. So our goal in our marriage was to create a place of safety, and we did that.
mhm,
So for me to leave that place of safety
mhm,
was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And so, if that's you right now, and you're somebody who's like, holy shit, I've created this place of safety, and now now I have to leave it because I may not be as straight as I think I am. We get you. Both Barb and I really deeply understand this experience and we understand the depression. And I don't think for me it was depression. I think it was sadness. There's a difference between sadness and depression.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah, depression, if it's persistent, if it's lasting longer than 2 weeks, if it's most of the day, every single day, if it's disturbing your sleep, you either can't sleep or you're
Mhm.
sleeping way too much, and if it's interfering with other activities in your life that you can't get done, you can't work, you can't eat, you can't, then that's really a good time to, like, Say it right now. Make an appointment with your doctor, right?
And if you don't have a therapist, find a therapist. Really, we do believe neither Barbara or I are qualified to recommend medication or anything, but we do know doctors can. And so we
Yes.
really believe having a floor under you, you do not have to crawl on your knees
No,
for 1,000 miles doing
no,
mea culpas. You do not have to suffer in this process.
no.
I think one of the reasons Barb and I do this work is because both of us suffered way more
Way
than
more. And
we should.
way too long.
And for two,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we want to give you a minimum viable day. So if you're somebody that is like, holy shit, I'm depressed, Anne-Marie and Barb just described depression.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to do 5, 5, 5. So hydrate, protein, fiber meal,
Mm-hmm.
and 10 minutes outside.
Mm-hmm.
Text a safe friend, go out in the sunlight, 5 slow breaths.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember doing something 15 minutes, 5, 5, 5 for
Mhm.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So always hydrate, make sure you eat at least one good meal. And, for me, I'm somebody who loses my appetite when I'm depressed or sad, overwhelmed. And so, and then, because I'm a woman, I'm like, oh, great, I'm losing weight. It's so unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's freaking unhealthy to do that. And so I'm like, oh, I don't have an appetite, so I won't eat. Well, guess what? Your blood sugar goes crashing
Yeah.
down.
Which doesn't help the mood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your suggestion about getting out in the sunlight and getting outside.
Mm-hmm.
If I can thinking back to that stage when I was in it, really difficult to get out of bed, like really difficult. And my biggest supporter in the whole wide world, my sister, did the smartest thing imaginable. She was like, you know what? I'm really busy these days. I don't think she was that busy, but but that was her line. I'm really busy these days. I really need you to help take care of Maggie, which was her little Jack Russell Terrier. Can I leave her with you for a few weeks and you could take care of her? And she was a senior dog, so she didn't have a ton of physical requirements, but she was still had a little spark in her. And that little dog was what dragged me out of bed and around the block every single day, multiple times a day, whether I wanted to or not,
Mm-hmm.
to get
Mm-hmm.
outside. And even though it was cold, because I remember it was, February in Ontario, not
Mhm.
exactly pleasant, but even the cold, like being outside in the fresh, cold air made a difference, right?
Mhm.
So if you have a dog to drag you outside, that's great. If not, see if maybe there's something else that you could sort of hook yourself to that requires you without fail to leave the house. And if it's linked to caretaking, like it is with taking care of dogs, I mean, it's good because it gets you thinking outside of yourself.
Well, and dogs are the greatest companion when they know when you're sad. They
Yeah.
know. So a lot of times they'll end up sitting on your lap. Like I know my dogs when I get upset, they know. And they come and they sit on my lap and stuff like that.
Hi, it's Anna and Pete.
And I'm Anne-Marie Zanzal. We are part of the production team of Secure Lesbian Bonds.
You love each other, but lately it feels like you're speaking different emotional languages. Conversations turn into arguments or silence. You feel alone even when you're right next to her.
But you're not broken. You're just stuck in a painful cycle, and there's a way out. Strengthening Love is an online relationship course created specifically for lesbian couples. It blends emotion-focused therapy, trauma-informed tools, and real-world support to help you reconnect without blame or shame.
Inside, you'll learn how to recognize your emotional triggers, communicate with compassion, and rebuild intimacy that lasts. It's flexible, self-paced, and completely affirming of your relationship.
And for less than 2 therapy sessions, you get lifetime access to a full relationship roadmap with worksheets, partner exercises, and guidance from queer women who get it. Start today at healthylesbianrelationships.com.
Because your love deserves to feel safe, seen, and strong again.
So, how about media, Barbara? What do you think about media? Like, I feel like that could be a really good tiny step.
Sure. I mean, if you're feeling disconnected from community, you're not sure how you're going to go forward in your queer identity or what even that identity is, start familiarizing yourself with queer media.
Mhm.
LGBTQ isn't just an orientation, it is a culture.
It is a culture. Yeah.
right? And there's so much amazing culture to absorb.
Hmm.
So whether that's picking like your favorite queer podcast or exploring, maybe you don't have a favorite one. You don't even know what they are yet.
Hmm.
Explore and see what they are. You can maybe like and subscribe to this one too, just saying.
Yes, we would appreciate that.
But it could be as easy as Googling what are some the most popular lesbian films from the past 20 years?
Well, and I think it's also fun to look at your age
Mhm,
and like what was and think about when would I have been coming of age as a lesbian? Would it have been in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, the teens? And
mhm.
then what were the best popular lesbian movies then? Why? Because it will give you a connection with your future peers because you'll have
Yes.
seen the movies that they
Yes.
have seen,
Yep.
you know, and a lot of them are delightful. Try to pick one that's just happy.
Yeah. No, these ones that ended like, "Okay, stay away from Carol. I'm sorry. I know it's a beautiful
Yeah,
film,
just
but"
don't stay away from Carol because it's depressing. Don't
Yeah,
watch that one. But there's a lot of fun queer media out there. Find the ones that are silly and campy. You can't go wrong with Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. You cannot
yeah,
go wrong with Help, I'm a Cheerleader. All of those are funny and campy and silly and can really lighten your mood.
totally.
I also believe that, a lot of times, sometimes people get worried about us. And so being able to say to the people that are worried about us is like, hey, today is heavy. I don't need fixing. And just ask for people to check in with you later. That will always help. And if hopelessness sticks, what do you advise, Barb?
Well, if hopelessness is persistent,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's gone on for 2 weeks, if your self-care, like if you're not able to feed yourself, if your sleep is completely disruptive or sleeping too much, if you're having trouble even doing things like taking a shower, then we encourage you to let people know what's happening for you, including professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Widen that. And so, a really valid thing that you can do if you're having a mental health emergency is to get yourself to an emergency room. And because it is a mental health crisis, it's a crisis, right? And you'll be able to have professionals help sort of triage what's happening and get the floor back under you. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other one too is now I think in the United States it's 988. It is 988 in Canada as well.
It's a suicide hotline, right?
Suicide hotline, yeah.
And we would really that is if you are having thoughts of self-harm, you need to help yourself.
Mhm.
We need you here. The world needs you here. So if you're having thoughts of self-harm, then please call 988 or get to an emergency room. Or if you already have somebody you work with from a lot of our women already take some sort of anti-anxiety medication because we've been living as straight women and we're not for our entire lives. That's a whole nother episode. Call your provider and
Mhm.
say, I need to up my medication dosage for the next couple of months because I'm going through some real big life transition. And it is okay to do that. One of my biggest regrets is my mental health crisis was real. I consider self harm. What saved me is my new girlfriend came up and stayed with me. That is now my wife. And a bunch of women from a Facebook group who were virtual strangers really helped me during that time. But
Um,
my regret is I waited another 3 months before I went on medication that would have saved me. That experience, those women helped me and saved me during that time, but my mental health was still all over the place. And
mhm.
so I didn't start any medication, I think, until May. And this was February when that happened. And so my biggest regret is being, oh, I can tough this out. I don't need to be on medication. It's going to
Yeah,
be okay.
white knuckle.
Once I was on medication, anti-anxiety medication, the floor underneath me became more stable. And it allowed me to actually process my feelings instead of being in a crisis state.
Mhm.
We really believe that depression is serious, even in grief, like even though it's part of grief, they're all equal, but depression is serious and we do have to take care of ourselves.
Mhm.
So proud of a woman inside of Authentically Us. She's been a member of our group, and then she posted she was going to go into an inpatient. And Barb and I, and so many of the women in the group, were so proud of her because she recognized she needed more help than her therapist, Authentically Us. And I'm so glad she let us know because she just didn't disappear. And she just said, I'm checking she was brave to tell the whole group, but I admire that about her. By doing that and sharing with the group, she is modeling a behavior for someone who might need it. There might be somebody else in the group that may need professional inpatient support, and they think, oh God, I'm a failure. And then when they see somebody else do it, they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's an option.
Right. Yeah, if it's okay for her, it's okay for me. And for the remainder of us, who are just sort of navigating through, maybe not quite at like the lowest of the low and where it gets to a crisis point. And this was definitely true for me. Understand that change is incremental, right? If you continue to use that 5-5-5 method that you described, I mean, we're talking that makes 15 minutes in your day. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're rebuilding your life. So understand that even incremental changes every single day add up to a lot of change. So it can, over the course of a month, if you are attentive to it, even though from day to day it might not feel like a big change. If you reflect back to the beginning of the month, it may be, oh, you know what? Maybe things have changed for me. Maybe things are getting better.
Well, and that reminds me of you know what our most popular post is in Authentically Us? The
Gosh, which one?
one gay thing.
Yes, the one gay thing.
We have a post on Thursdays, which is one gay thing, and we encourage our members to do one gay thing a week. And there's a reason we do that is because exactly like Barb said, small incremental changes amount to big change. And so like one of the ladies this week wrote about flirting with somebody via text. Another one wrote about going to an event that previously she wouldn't have not gone. And sometimes it's like other things too, like, oh, I told my mother that I was gay, or I came out at work, so there's other things that like sometimes they're big things, sometimes they're little things. I've seen people post, oh, at work, I put a little pride pin on my land, you know? And so like things like that, those tiny little steps are so important. And that's one of those things we do in Authentically Us to really encourage you to move forward. Everything we do in Authentically Us is very thought out and planned. There's reasons behind. Sometimes we don't tell people the reasons, but there's reasons behind we do things.
Right.
Yeah.
Sneaking away.
We are going to get to the fun part now,
Yes.
which
Talk
is
about
acceptance.
depression.
Yes, I can hold this whole story.
Yes.
So, what we want to say about acceptance, it isn't done. It's holding your past with tenderness and choosing your present, consciously, mindfully choosing your present. And that is what acceptance is. Because grief is not linear, you don't get to acceptance and be done. It will come, it'll circle in, it'll circle out until it stays.
Yes, because life is always going to deal us some hard things. So if we can be at peace with knowing that grief is going to come to call every once in a while and sit with it when it does come to call, it will pass. And part of, I think, building that, I don't want to say tougher skin. There's got to be a better way to describe that. Maybe grit, maybe no, let's call it
Resilience.
flexibility.
I think resilience.
Resilience. That's better because I don't want people to think that they have to become tough to be able to manage this journey. Sensitivity is a great strength, but having that flexibility, that emotional and psychological flexibility to be able to endure the grief and the difficult pieces when they arise. And a big part of building that flexibility is aligning our values with our actions and behaviors. So what I've observed, this is a big part of acceptance and commitment therapy, which I'm a huge fan of. When our values are over here and our actions are over here, the bigger the gap between those two things, the unhappier we are. So if we can align our values with our actions, and we enhance our lives and we make ourselves happier. So we recommend that you choose a value. Also identify your values. Because a lot of times when women have been married for 15, 20, 25, 30 years, often have a very poor sense of self after separation and divorce. It's like, who the heck am I even? What am I about? I don't even know who I am anymore without the context of being a married person. And it's kind of like that, that old movie where woman separates and she's like, how do I like my eggs? Like I always ate them scrambled because yeah, or I always drank my coffee. I always drank my coffee. This is true for me. I always drank my coffee the way my ex-husband drank his coffee because that's the way he prepared it. I don't drink it that way anymore because you know what? I don't like it that way. I like it. Well, it's not that I don't like it, but I like it this other way better. Transferring that same thought over to values takes some time, and maybe working with a coach or a therapist takes some time to really explore what your values are and get really clear about it. Write them down. If you Google it, and I know we've had it in our worksheets millions of times, values lists. If you Google the word values list, you'll get images popping up left, right, and center of values words that you can pick from. Start by maybe picking 30 words and then bring it down to 10 and then maybe 5 and then maybe 3 and choose a value and then one weekly action that aligns with that value, right? Another thing you can do is like some relationship hygiene, which means tending to those relationships, doing check-ins, building up repair tools as well for maybe looking up repair scripts, learning how to talk to the people in your life using I language, right? So you can have difficult conversations without making it feel like anybody like any blaming or rising any defensiveness. And also communicating what you need and boundaries. And then little rituals to make yourself feel like you belong. Maybe that's wearing like I got my little lesbian bracelet on today that I've been sitting here playing with. It's just a little thing, but it means so much to me. This is a symbol of my community.
Yes, in a tiny step, like update one small thing. Make
Yeah,
yourself a lesbian playlist,
yeah,
or make yourself a joy playlist, or make yourself a dance playlist. Make something that makes you feel good, that you are
yeah,
part of the community. You can change your wallpaper on your phone. A lot of times people will put a little bit of like rainbow wallpaper or something like that, or even
mhm.
something more subtle.
One small thing, like just change one small thing, and a line that you can think of is like, I change this, insert whatever that is, that tiny little, and reflect on what that means to you. It means, oh, okay, I'm starting to reclaim myself. I belong to me.
And that's really what we do, is we help people find themselves and claim their truth and realize that they belong to themselves. After belonging to a lot of other people,
Mhm.
from starting with our parents and our families to our communities, our churches, to our spouses, and there's nothing wrong with belonging to other people. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we also have to belong to ourselves. We
Mhm.
have to know who we are.
Mhm.
And I feel like midlife is the greatest discovery time to figure out who we are. And you're here. So
Yeah.
welcome.
Yep.
We have a micro practice. So if you wake up in the morning, I would love for you to put your hand on your heart and name today's wave. Now, you may not be able to do it first thing in the morning. Maybe it's going to be in the lunchtime, but say to yourself, what am I feeling today? Denial, bargaining, depression, or acceptance?
And think of maybe one kind step that
Okay, rate it from 0 to 3, and then what can we do, Barb?
so adopting little rituals or just even one tiny teeny little kind step that you can do before bed. So
Mhm,
maybe that's like, okay, I'm going to make sure I haven't drank a glass of water all day today. I'm going to have a glass of water. Maybe I
mhm,
send an affirming text to somebody who I care about, or just like a little reach out. Hi, I was thinking about you. Hope you had a great day. Making sure we're maintaining those connections with the people who care about us.
mhm.
It could look like just taking 5 minutes to go outside, feel the sun on your face, feel the fresh air, maybe move around a little bit, go for a quick walk.
And you know what another reason is to go outside? So during the pandemic, I didn't go outside a lot. I mean, I was just, holed in my house. My vitamin D level dropped. When your vitamin D level drops, you
Yeah.
get depressed and you get tired.
Yeah.
So we need the sunshine.
Yes.
Go outside, say, I'm going to get my vitamin D requirement. It is the most natural way to do it. It will help with your mental health.
And maybe one little sentence that reflects the truth of your identity. Something positive that you can say that just affirms, like an affirming statement.
So, Barb, what did you create for us?
Ooh, oh yes, I created a marvelous grief guide. Now it's got some worksheets in there as well. It was available as of last week because we did part one of the grief journey last week, and we are going to make it available to you again this week. So if you look in the show notes, you'll see there is a link, a Bitly link to be able to download that PDF. It's free, and it's a really great little guide. Actually, if I do say so myself, it turned out pretty
It
great.
is the best. We even have a name for it. So sometimes I will give Barb content and then I say barbarize it. And like even my web designer, we all call it barbarize it. She's really great at that. And it's also on my website. So if you go to my website, annemariezanzal.com, and go under guides, it will be housed there under guides.
Mhm.
We also encourage you to find community. You'll also find our Authentically Us, our women centered community. You can go to it and find it on my website as well. And then if you really need deeper support, more support where you're held, more support where, you have individual coaching with either Barb or myself, we really highly recommend Lotus Community Coaching. It is our guided container.
Yep, it works, and we've seen it time and time again.
Yes.
Folks who recognize that they need extra support and who value getting professional support when they're trying to achieve something.
But beyond both communities are wonderful. Both are at different price points. But what's really wonderful about Lotus Community Coaching is the group of women. So the
Totally.
group of women who know your story.
Mhm.
So in Authentically Us, sometimes you have to share your story over and over again just because people don't know it so well. When you're, just when we're in our mutual support groups and we're talking about a certain thing, sometimes you have to give that backstory. But in Lotus Community Coaching, you don't, because those women know your story because it's the same exact women in the support groups every week. And we've had a lot of wins from both Authentically Us and Lotus Group Coaching. I think one of the biggest wins that we give to people is that what people say to us all the time, whether you join Authentically Us or Lotus Group, is I have a soft space to land. A lot
Mhm.
of times people are just so grateful to be in a place with others who understand.
Mhm.
If you are struggling with any of the aspects of grief, Authentically Us or Lotus Group is such a wonderful place to land. Or I also advise to go back and listen to the first two seasons of this podcast, because in the first two seasons, we just tell stories over and over again of other later in life women. And I find that when people come into our community, they can exhale. Finally, exhale.
Yeah, yeah. They're seen. They're understood. They don't have to explain themselves. They don't
Correct.
have the burden of that because every single woman there understands what they're going through. Yeah.
And one more reminder, this is not linear. You
Mhm.
are not behind. Recognition is the win.
That's
So
right.
when we recognize that we are grieving, that is the win. That was the win for me. That was
Mhm.
the win for me. I mean, it didn't mean everything was fixed and all better, but recognizing my grief was a way for me to have self-compassion for myself.
We can't change it unless we know what's going on.
And just because we recognize it doesn't mean it's fixed. That was like another lesson I got. Thank you, Al-Anon. But just because I recognize something about myself or my life or my journey doesn't mean it's fixed. It's just a recognition.
Mhm. Mhm. It's the first step.
It's the first step.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you need a place to go to feel seen and understood, we're over in Authentically Us. We are cheering you on. We're cheering you on now, right from the
So we're
start.
cheering you on now. One
Right
step at a
now.
time, right?
One step at a time, even if it's teeny tiny, it still makes a difference.
Even if it's listening to this podcast weekly for the next year before you reach out, that's perfect. Because listening to this podcast, because generally Barb and I are on here giving advice and telling you about this journey. And once in a while, you get a great guest to listen to and just, get your mind off your journey and listen to somebody who's come out and
Yeah.
who's created their own fantastic queer life. So we will see you next time.
Thank you so much. Great chat.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA+ stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzal.com.